recording. Cool, awesome. Well, welcome everybody, and thanks for those that were able to jump on. I know it's certainly tough midday like this. I wanted to at least provide this option up front early, and we'll do a few of these whenever they make sense. So these are very informal and not a big deal for those that can or can't join. We'll get the recording up so others can benefit. So Paula, Rebecca, Michelle, Rachel, thank you all. Does anyone just up front have like a nice ice-breaking, this is what I'm up to, and some chaos in your current world, or exciting plans for the week or weekend, or anything interesting to share?
I'm going to the mountains this weekend. That's about it.
We've got a few weeks and maybe a month or so left where that can still be an option.
Yes.
Cool. Well, welcome and thanks. I can give a quick, just general overview of kind of where things stand, and then this is really just sort of an open stage to chat and talk about any questions. Definitely, even if you think it's one that you should know or is a dumb question, like, let's bring it up because we've got a big group and I'm sure others would benefit. So sort of through Foundations of Design, this first week was really, it felt like kind of a lot, but at the same time, hopefully just got everybody oriented to some degree. We've looked at some models and frameworks now, started to think about partnering and project topics. Sorry, I didn't get the partnering up discussion as quickly as I should have. A lot of the dates just carry over from previous semesters, so that was my fault. But that discussion is open now, so that's as long as sort of the initial Unit 1 stuff is complete, then that's really where the focus goes for this coming week, is really working through how to formulate those partnerships, get teamed up with folks that you want to work with, and identify some potential topics. So with that in mind, what questions have arisen as far as that process? Where to even go? I know some have already jumped into the UN website and looked at some of those projects. That's certainly an option just for some framing, but anyone is certainly open to take on a very real project that might be relevant in your own sort of work or context. So it doesn't have to be based off the UN stuff. That's all pretty hypothetical. Questions, thoughts? This is sort of your time, and I'll hopefully be able to answer questions where I can, or just let me know. Was the first week just chaotic? Do we feel okay? Give me a sense for where folks are at.
I guess I would say, first of all, thank you to Rebecca for joining my group. This is Paula. And I guess I'm reassured to hear that it doesn't need to be precisely aligned with the United Nations proposals, because what I had, the direction I was presenting when looking for partners was that there's a website where they request OER resources, open education resources, to share with underserved populations in Canada, and they give those populations tablets. But I thought, I've seen a lot of OER resources in my time, and they're not exactly created equally. You know what I mean? Some of them are pretty terrible, and so I figured, maybe one way I could read that is the training opportunity might be how to identify good OER resources for that particular population.
Yeah.
And so, if that sounds appropriate, that's great.
It's wonderful. I, having just worked through an OER initiative at a local university, mm-hmm. There's this misconception around as long as we employ OER, then the educational experience is clearly going to be superior. Mm-hmm. And that's not necessarily the case. There's still a ton of training and other things that go into making sure that those are appropriate resources and that people have the skills needed to implement them in an effective way. So, yep, I saw that project come up. I was like, in the last 2 years or so, I don't think we've had a single OER focused project. So, yeah, I love it.
There's a couple of other people kicking around ideas too. The other thing I would say to Rachel and Michelle is that if you wanted to join our group, Rebecca and I, we're happy to have you. I know we need a group of 4.
This is Michelle. It's so funny that you said that. I was just going to reply to your topic in the thread, and then I was like, oh, they're both on here. I would love to join your project. I love the fact that it's working with underserved populations. And then I'm personally new to OERs. I first introduced them at the last year at CU Boulder. But I want to learn more and actually learn how to effectively put one into place. So if you'll have me, I would love to join.
We would love to have you.
Awesome.
Welcome
I'll
to the group.
I'll still reply and put it on the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, having this group as maybe just sort of a model would be awesome. Since again, we're shooting for sort of 3 or 4 folks just because of the larger group. So you're sort of already getting close to that number. So I love it. Yeah. As soon as that feels good and you've aligned sort of on that partnership, then go ahead and just pop each other's names into the defining a solution design project discussion. That's sort of where we'll curate. There are some points tied to that, but it's really just getting a sort of final landing place for what these groups are going to do. As soon as you're there, then add each other's names, and we'll have a good model for how this would work.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I can't tell because I'm new to all of this. It's Rebecca. As far as the defining the solution design project piece of it goes, are we all posting the same thing? Because we can't see it until we post. So are we each supposed to put in the title and the team members' names, and that's it? Or I'm a little confused just about the nuts and bolts.
Sure, that's right. And that's really just so that I can triangulate. Again, usually this is only, I try to shoot for just partners and pairs, so it's a little easier. But that's just a way to make sure I'm seeing the same names across the same projects.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Also, just in research, like you probably have done a little work, and it sounds like you guys are already going to try to connect. But also, if you do any research or have any other thoughts, like you can sort of calculate some of those there, along with just calling out your partners.
Okay, great, thanks.
The one thing I'll mention, like this does, it sounds like you all have an interest in this topic, but just know that it does sort of drive the direction for the rest of the semester. So that's where I'm like, it's really fun. I've had folks that just really appreciate the fact that they're coming into something with really no background on it. I think that's fine. But at the same time, if you really have a deep interest in some topic, it might take a little more time this week to make sure that you're settled on something that's really going to be meaningful. Like that, ultimately, we want everyone to feel like they're spending, this time here in this course, a solution and designing instruction around something that matters. So take the time, but at the same time, if you're okay just sort of jumping in and want to get moving, then earlier the better, so that we don't drag into next week. But it does set the pace and focus for the rest of the semester. Other thoughts, questions? I see we've got Courtney, a few others have joined. This is pretty open. Any thoughts or questions that you have at this point, or just other general expectations or kind of where things are headed? I'll mention and we can play with, as you guys have sort of, I think, grasped, I'm kind of, my style in doing this is very open and flexible. I want this experience to be as much about you getting what you want out of it as me helping to provide some of the expertise that I bring. So we can shift and move on the fly. This isn't going to be a very linear structured process necessarily. So every subsequent unit will open on Saturday night. So you'll have Sunday to sort of review what's to come. If it feels like you're wanting a few more days to see what the coming units are, we can talk about shifting that a little bit so that you can see further ahead. I've played with just having the entire course open. That hasn't always worked out well. People get into a weird mode of like already thinking about assessment. And there's we're trying to move through the process sequentially with intention. So I've found that it does help to just fight off each unit as it comes. We've got a dog joining, I hope.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that was my
you
dog.
barking or was that a dog? I've got one too, I think, somewhere here. Anyway, so just so everyone knows, you will get a sort of peek at what's to come over the weekend, but it's sort of chunked and pieced the way it is for good reason. But again, if folks feel like they want subsequent units to be opened up sooner, and there's enough groundswell, and the community says we got to have a few more days, then I'll shift it. So I'm very open to changing things on the fly as needed. So just pipe up if that's how you're feeling. Anything else? Questions, thoughts? We've got an awesome OER sort of model, I think, to work from as far as getting a good group together. I certainly chat a bit about like what we've got a long way to go, but you can sort of already start thinking about what the specific gap is that you're looking to address. That's going to be Unit 2. It's all about really doing a lot of analysis up front of who are these potential learners that might benefit, in this case, from understanding how to utilize OER in a more effective way. But just think a lot about like, what is that gap that exists? And I don't want to get too far ahead, but we'll dive into that next week. But that's kind of what's to come, is just really digging into the analysis process and sort of empathizing with our learners. That'll be coming up.
And I have a quick question, and just I'm probably answering it myself, but just looking through the syllabus and the topics. So we'll be doing pieces of the project that will ultimately lead to the whole project, correct? Like I've done that before with like a marketing strategy plan. We did sections along the way, and then at the final end of the semester, we submitted everything together. But will you be giving us feedback on those individual sections along the way so we can make edits and changes for the final project?
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Having that sort of full solution design project description up front, you have a sense of like what the full package will be.
Okay.
But yeah, the individual elements will kind of come as we go, and I'll help to provide feedback. We'll certainly leverage each other. So there's peer reviews that'll happen along with some of the major components. So you'll obviously get a sense for how others are approaching their work and be able to help each other. And so we're sort of all moving on the same ship in the same direction, and the feedback will, because of the size of the group, I'll try to offer as much as I can and do maybe more of this sort of, we can even workshop some projects later on in this sort of format, but definitely leverage each other too, and help out where you have expertise. We have like, there's a ton of, this is probably the most diverse, both like where folks are coming from, like physically, along with like backgrounds, professional contexts. This is probably the most diverse group I've seen. So we should, leverage that to the most, and to, as much as we can. There's a good range of perspectives approaching this work.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And did I hear you correctly? I'm sorry, I was a little late. I was trying to download Zoom. So you'll be posting so you open up the new assignments the Saturday before, and then we usually have a week to complete those assignments.
You'll see the full unit, so it'll be the full 2 weeks. Each unit is 2 weeks, and there's a module per week. So
Per week, okay.
Yep, just how you saw the first full unit, which is the first 2 weeks. We're in the second week now. and I should say Saturday night. So you'll just sort of get it Sunday morning is when you'll see kind of the next unit to come. So you'll always kind of get a sense for what the next 2 weeks will look like.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. And if anyone still needs a partner, I still do too. So I'm going to I usually go on Tuesday and Wednesday nights for work. So if anyone's interested in partnering up, I am available, but I'm going to go into the chat later today.
Cool. Well, and for anyone I assume some will review this recording. So
Yeah.
Courtney's looking and open, and so reach out if you review this and are looking for somebody, reach out to Courtney.
Thanks. Yeah.
Anything else? And I'm perfectly fine keeping this fairly short and sweet, but if there are any other thoughts or questions, I'm trying to think, did anyone pick up like specific books or other resources? I have no interest in like mandating expensive textbooks, but does anyone have other resources or like valuable things that they've layered in here that might be useful to share with anyone else?
I just have a question regarding the books that you had listed as highly suggested books for on the syllabus. Do you suggest we read those cover to cover or use them more as reference books?
Depends on how much time you have. I think they're all really useful, but definitely sort of as reference within the scope of the course. I know it, like trying to read. Of course, we do have some serious readers. Like there are folks putting down a book a week. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So yeah. Depends on what sort of time you have, but I think looking at them as reference makes a lot of sense. Each of them is sort of highly recommended. Each of those books has very distinct sections that like are directly applicable to different project components. So,
because I'm pretty new to this whole field of instructional design, so I thought those would be probably pretty useful for me. I just wanted to make sure I was, I don't know, using them correctly without going crazy with reading 3 huge books. So, okay.
And yeah, it's all a matter of, you know, your own budget and all these other things. Most of those are, I think you can find most of them affordably or in like an audio format or ebook. So that's sort of up to everybody how you go about acquiring that if it seems useful. But there's nothing in the course that will like, you know, make or break you if you don't have those as reference. They're sprinkled into the quizzes, and there are some places that I've kind of leveraged. Certainly the Dirksen text. That's a big one, but.
And the older edition, because the really big one was very expensive, so I bought an older edition for about $5, and that'll be fine.
That's perfect. Okay. Yep. In fact, pretty minimal changes. There are some interesting updates and stuff, but the older versions are really just as good. Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, or just general reactions to the semester or LDT? This is all new to a lot of us. The sort of rebrand of the program broadly, as I actually came through when it was ILT many moons ago. So I think it's a good move. It's a learning information learning technologies was always this weird combination of words. Learning design and technology just to me is it's a good shift. Well, I think we'll cut it pretty short. If anyone has anything else, speak now or forever hold your peace. Any more dogs? We'll give it 1 second for any more barks.
Outside. She's not going to bark again. You might see her in my videos though.
And I only say that you'll probably hear my dog at some point this semester.
Yeah. It's the time of the mailman, so.
Yep.
So I just want to say thanks for setting this up. I don't have a lot to say today because I'm still drinking out of the fire hose, but I appreciate the time.
Yeah, and again, I want this to be my whole philosophy and sort of general thought behind learning is to just co-create an experience that is useful. So just know my thought, not necessarily in sort of the undergraduate level, but at this level, like you guys all bring as much expertise to the table as I do in some respects. So anytime this feels like it's going to be useful, don't hesitate, pipe up and say, hey, it'd be really good to get a Zoom call. Let's see what we can make happen. And you know, even if you can't make it, I'll record it, obviously. So yeah, never hesitate to say, let's shift things a little bit in any way, whether it's something in the syllabus that doesn't quite look right, whatever it might be. We can be flexible as we go. And keep me honest. Like, you guys can already see, this course evolves a lot every semester, and it always is sort of morphing and changing. There's going to be little broken links here and there. It's part of just my being kind of scattered and flawed in some ways. But I try to just bring honesty and openness to it. So as that stuff comes up and something doesn't seem right, definitely. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining, and you know where to find each other online. Jump into the partnering up early and often, and let's get groups of 3 or 4. If we have to do a couple pairs, probably not a big deal, but just sort of, we're shooting for 3 to 4, just sort of as a general rule. And then as soon as you feel solid about it, jump into that the project 1 discussion, and we'll have to try to solidify all these by September 1st. So that's sort of what we're aiming at this week. Cool.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.
We'll talk online.